Okay, so we will start at the top of the cat and work our way through the digestive tract, which is, the list doesn't do that perfectly, but it's pretty in line with the list that's up on Google Classroom. So up on the top, we have our oral cavity, which is that opening of the inside of the mouth. On the top of the oral cavity, we have our hard palate and our soft palate. At the base of the oral cavity, we have our tongue. Some accessory organs of the mouth, we haven't exposed them yet on this cat. We have our sublingual gland, we have our submandibular gland, and then we would have our parotid gland up here in the cheek up by the ear. Working our way through the flow of food, as we swallow, we are going to open up into the oropharynx. Essentially, the pharynx by itself is going to be this opening back here where the food is going to pass through the back of the throat. If we look inside of the pharynx, if we were to stay on the roof of the mouth, we can see this opening, and this opening at the roof of the mouth is going to be our nasopharynx. And this flap right here that the probe is on is also going to be our uvula. On the opposite side of the pharynx, at the base of the throat, we can work our way back, and if we can get back here far enough, we can get to the epiglottis. Okay, and that epiglottis is going to be this flap of skin that will separate the trachea and the esophagus, or prevent food from going down one pipe and prevent oxygen from going down into the stomach. So if we were to take our probe and move it down past the epiglottis, we will be able to see our probe we can see it moving into the esophagus, and we were to move it in a different direction, we would end up inside of the trachea. So working our way down again. Here we can separate out our two tubes. Okay, over on this side we would have the esophagus, and this is going to take food from the mouth all the way down to the stomach. Our second tube is actually going to sit in front, and this is going to be our trachea, and this is that cartilaginous ring, or the series of cartilaginous rings that will keep this trachea open while we breathe, preventing it from collapsing in on itself. Trachea's job is to take oxygen to the lungs and bring carbon dioxide out from the lungs. Esophagus job is to take food, or in this case will be in the form of a bolus, from the oral cavity through that tube behind all of our vital organs through the thoracic cavity, and it will dump out through the diaphragm. And as it passes through the diaphragm, it will come behind the liver and make its way to our stomach, which is right here. Okay, at the top of the stomach, we are going to have our cardiac sphincter up here, which is going to be that meaty ring that opens and closes to allow that bolus to pass into the stomach. Our regions of the stomach, we have our cardiac region, we have the fundus, we have the body of the stomach, and then we have the pyloric region. Okay, and at the base of that pyloric region, we are also going to have a pyloric sphincter. This stomach's been cut open. If we look on the inside, we can see these ridges and valleys. It's not perfectly smooth. Those are going to be our rugae. And on the outside anatomy of our stomach, we are going to have this big curve at the base of the stomach. This is going to be our greater curvature. And at the top of the stomach, we are going to have our lesser curvature. Attached to the lesser curvature, I'm going to have this connective tissue. This connective tissue is going to be our lesser omentum. The lesser omentum essentially just connects the lesser curvature to the liver. Attached to the greater curvature, I'm going to have the greater omentum. The greater omentum is going to be this giant drape. It's going to act as like a blanket. It's going to cover up the abdominal cavity, and all this fat will help with protection. And this is also one of our mesenteries that we need to know, one of the connective tissue layers. Okay, so our greater omentum, just like the lesser omentum, its job is to help also produce that serous fluid. And that serous fluid acts as like a lubricant to prevent all of those organs from sticking together. Okay, another membrane we need to know is our parietal peritoneum, which is this shiny layer of connective tissue that is going to line our cavities. Okay, we can see that separation here. I'm actually getting a little bit of the muscle in with it here. But this shiny layer here is going to be that parietal peritoneum. The shiny layer that lines our internal organs, this is going to be our visceral peritoneum. Okay, and then the membrane that holds the intestines to the abdominal wall. That is going to be our mesentery. That should be all of our membranes that we need to know, okay? So back to our digestive tract. Okay, we have our stomach, which is where we left off. The stomach is going to drain all of that chyme that is created from the bolus into the duodenum through the pyloric sphincter. So we have our stomach draining through this pyloric sphincter into the duodenum, which is going to be the small section at the beginning of the small intestine. For the rest of the intestines, I think it's a little bit easier to actually work our way backwards so we don't get mixed up on where we're at. There's a lot of small intestines, so it can be easy to get lost. So I think it's easier to work our way backwards. Okay, the opening at the end of the digestive tract is going to be our anus, which is going to have that internal and external anal sphincters, which will drain from the rectum. The rectum will drain from the sigmoid colon. And the first section that we can see on this cat with the way it's dissected is actually the descending colon. Okay, this descending colon will transition into the transverse colon, and that transverse colon will transition into the ascending colon. And at the base of that ascending colon, I'm going to have the sigmoid colon. Okay, and in people, we would see another structure here at the base of the sigmoid, or I'm sorry, not sigmoid colon, the cecum. That's my bad. Cecum. This is the cecum, not the sigmoid. Okay. So at the base of the cecum, we are going to find an appendix in people. The cats don't have an appendix, so we won't see it here, but know that that would be there in us. Okay, at the opening of the cecum, where the small intestine and the large intestine merge together, we have that ileocecal valve. When you guys feel this section, it's going to feel a lot more meaty because that valve is going to be made out of that, that smooth muscle. Okay, so the cecum is actually going to be a transition away from the ileum, which is why we call this the ileocecal valve, because it is the connection between the ileum and the cecum. So basically everything in between our ileum and our duodenum will be left with this huge chunk of small intestine here. This is all going to be our duodenum. Some of our accessory organs that we haven't talked about yet, we mentioned the liver up top, which has those 4 lobes that we need to know. On the underside of the greater omentum, we will find the spleen, and I kind of got it all tangled up, but we also need to find the pancreas, which will be down in here. This is going to be our pancreas through here. And then we have our kidneys. Our kidneys are going to be what we call retroperitoneal organs, meaning that they are behind the peritoneum. This is our right kidney, and on the opposite side, we will also find the left kidney. Okay, these kidneys have a lot of fat covering them, but they are behind this peritoneum and all this fat. I think.
The gallbladder.
Oh, the gallbladder. Thank you. Yes, gallbladder. Gallbladder is going to be between 2 of our lobes of the liver. This gallbladder is really green, meaning it has a lot of bile inside of it. So some of the gallbladders and some of the cats are not this green, but that is a good way to help us identify it. Okay. Now I think we're done.